We should probably all acknowledge that you are faced with extremely difficult tasks in very challenging circumstances, not only in our country but also in Europe. You are called upon to map and implement austerity measures on one hand, with, of course, ensuring some sustainable growth in economy on the other. I do not suggest, of course, that this is a mission impossible, but indeed extremely difficult one. I do hope, but knowing you as I do, I feel quite confident that at the end you will succeed for the benefit of the country and the whole nation. You mentioned in your presentation that social dialogue, support of all the interested parties in Slovenia is very, very important, and you are dealing with that. We are all convinced, I believe, that the measures you proposed are absolutely needed. Absolutely, there is no question about that. And they have to be taken now. It's already, I would say, too late, because time is not on our side. But there are many, I would say, especially on the opposition side, saying that the measures you are proposing and taking, that with them you are actually changing the architecture, the structure of the Slovenian society. What is your response to that?
Well, I wouldn't agree with that. We have gone through, I think, 3 or 4 circles within the government when we were preparing these measures. And the first circle was basically, let's be sensible on the operational expenditures, let's cut the operational expenditures, let's cut the investment also, because our logic was, okay, let's keep the investment that is co-funded by the EU, but there are certainly projects and programs that the government is doing that can wait, or that are not necessary. One of the first measures taken by the government was the decision not to support a student sport event in Maribor. And that was actually one of the measures on which we think we won the public opinion to our side. But it was more that we were looking at the figures and the budget and the liabilities that are there. We became aware that actually this will not be enough. So we had to look at measures that also reduce some social expenditure, some social entitlements, and also, as you know, the level of wages or the level of remuneration of employees in the public sector. And we think to some extent these measures are actually just and they can be justified, and they would be sensible even to be taken before, because if you look what was happening during the crisis, there were many jobs lost in the private sector, of course, and a lot of people faced wage decreases on which they had no chance to negotiate, really. And in the public sector, there were no jobs lost during the crisis. There were actually new jobs created in the public sector, and there were no wage decreases. There were some wage increases that were postponed, but that was everything that was done. So we think it's now just to actually expect the public sector to take this adjustment also in the public sector, because the wage bill in the public sector is like 4 billion euros, which means that if we keep that intact, there's no way we can balance the budget. Also some social entitlements are comparatively high in this country, exactly, which is for people hard to understand because they're used to it. And a lot of these entitlements were actually created not so long ago, in times where the economy was booming and the budget had no problem, and so on. So we're not actually going back to the Middle Ages with these measures, which may be going 5 or 6 years ago. And we were very careful in this when we change the social entitlements to actually reduce them more for people who have a little bit higher income, and to try to preserve the income of the people who have the lowest income. And I think it's on our side balanced in that way, also balanced approach and basically fair. There are certainly things that could be done otherwise. We also expect, that's why we call this a proposal, we also expect the social partners but also the public to tell us what maybe we could change with attaining a similar fiscal target still, but what is the most painful. But this is something that the government has proposed as a unity, and we are very much willing to stand behind these proposals.
Thank you very much. You are also doing a lot of things on the revenue side of the budget. How deep are your thoughts or plans on the area, for example, grey economy, fighting the tax evasions, which is the problem not only in Slovenia but in many other countries? What is your plan, for example, to get more from the companies that are state-owned, or even, okay, of course, we will discuss later on a little bit also the privatizations. Could you elaborate a little bit more about these issues?
Yeah, the grey economy is a problem in Slovenia, of course. It's not a problem that you can fight with guns, I'm afraid. So you should approach this in a sensible way. One sensible way is to simplify the tax environment. Mm-hmm. We are working on a proposal of average taxes of a simplified tax system for small entrepreneurs and sole entrepreneurs. But of course we are also now have a project of joining together the tax and customs authority, which will also, and this should be done in this year, of course. It will create some new force and some new approaches, some new possibilities to fight and discover tax avoidance. So I think there are things that can be done, of course, so we'll take them during the year, but I'm not a kind of minister that would say, okay, we will certainly have 300 millions more from the grey economy in the budget, and then plan this and then adjust the expenditures to this, because this has already been done and it's not a successful way to do it. And the public ownership, we are working on a proposal, which I cannot tell you much more about it because it's still in a very working stage, but the idea is to concentrate the management of public assets probably in one institution, not necessarily just in one fund, to make this much more efficient, and also to make clear rules: what is strategic investment, what is not, what is the expected rate of return, create benchmarks with similar institutions around the world, and so on. So I think this is also a way to improve the management of public property.
We don't really have a good experience in Slovenia with public-private partnership, but if you want to boost, to support some big infrastructural projects, and because of the problems with our budget, this is probably the only way. Concessions and PPP. What are your plans in this regard?
Yeah, I agree with that. We have actually a plan to prepare a list of possible projects for public-private partnerships, and then also to see if there are some legal amendments needed in this, and then to actively seek possible partners for these PPPs. There are some projects in Slovenia that in infrastructure, maybe in energy, also in the environment, that would be interesting for PPPs. But you know, so we'll prepare this. Actually, the line ministries will in their own areas, and I hope we have at least some good cases towards the end of the year.
This would be very much appreciated, I believe.